Hi, friends and family,
Welcome to Hope After Addiction
with your host, Katie Comer.
and Chelsea McLeod.
Hi, welcome Hope After Addiction. We are so glad that you've joined us today. Chelsea, how are you?
I'm good, friend. How are you?
I'm good. I am loving your shirt.
Thank
Look
you.
at it. Hope Dealer. Woo woo.
We want to make new swag, but I saw this and I was like,
Yeah.
I love this.
Hope After Addiction. Get it, Hope
Yeah.
Dealer.
Hope Dealer.
That's good. I
Yep.
like that. I'm happy to be back.
Yes.
If you haven't listened to last week's, go listen to it. It's phenomenal. My sister-in-law, Caitlin, talked to us a little bit about her ministry overseas and how they're dealing with addiction over in another country and how they're kicking the devil in the teeth over there.
It'll give you glory bumps.
I know. And that you're not alone.
That's right.
That a lot of people are dealing with this all over the world, and that we're not alone in this. So we're glad we have brothers and sisters, even across, literally, brothers and sisters.
Yeah. Yeah, literally.
Across the world.
That's right.
Dealing with this. So today our topic is, we hear a lot about it because we're in the front lines of this. But it's, what do we do? How are we supposed to feel? What do we do after we dropped our loved one off at rehab? Okay. So we've dropped them off. I'll tell you my story. You can tell me your story a little bit, and then we can talk about what that looks like. So my story is, I was talking to Adam about it a little bit. I did not drop Adam off at S2L. And so if you go back and listen to my testimony, we were kind of in a non-talking phase of our story. And so his parents dropped him off. I wasn't sure if we were going to be together at the time, but that is where my surrender story came in, was when he was getting dropped off at S2L. I was like, this was kind of his last opportunity. He had gone to some secular rehabs and have failed those. But this S2L, it was kind of his last opportunity. And so I was on my hands and my feet. That's where my painting comes into play, if you've ever seen that before, where I was like, God, I give him to you. He is yours. I surrender him completely. I surrender our marriage.
Yeah.
You do with it what you will. And he did something.
Yeah. Did something big.
Yeah. He did something big. So I'm grateful for that. But so I wasn't physically there at S2L. Now I was physically there at the secular ones. I was all in.
Yeah.
I had lots of hope. I had not been burned like I was when he was going to S2L. Was in that position where, okay, I'm going to drop him off and he's going to be better.
This is all going to be easy.
I didn't understand the whole lingo of healing from addiction. And I was a believer, but I didn't know how deep this really was. I didn't understand freedom from addiction. I just knew he was taking medication that he shouldn't be taking. And here he's getting dropped off, and I'll say, I'll see you next week for our family meeting. You know, that's kind of where I was. But I was kind of naive. I will say, when it comes to, I was hurt because he was lying to me, but I just thought it was a fixable thing in that secular rehab, that everything was going to go back to normal.
Right.
And then when he betrayed me, after that, I knew it was deeper. And I knew that I had to separate myself from him for him to really get it.
Yeah.
And so that's where I separated myself from him. He did the research on S2L. He knew that he needed to go back to his roots of Christianity. And so he found a Christian rehab, and his parents dropped him off. I'm sure they communicated me. I tried to go back through my journal to see about the drop off. I couldn't really find it, but I'm sure they communicated with me that we dropped him off, and I'm sure I was like, that's great. I'll be praying for him. But I don't know what that looks like. So I was very deeply hurt. And so we'll get more into after he's been dropped off here in a second. That's kind of my story. What was your story with John dropping off?
Well, I kind of have a similar, because John went secular the first time and then S2L the second. And so first time I was same as you, like I dealt with addiction, but I did think it was an easier fix. Like, we'll just go here. I was like taking a medication, it'll all be better, you know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I was all like, every visitation I wanted to be there. We wrote to each other every day. still very codependent and depending on each other, where neither one of us could have healing outside of each other. And so S2L, when that one happened, because I had gone through more pain, more betrayal, more lies, realized it was bigger. When I dropped him off there, it was more like a peace out, brother. Like
we'll
I
see what
probably
happens.
won't see. Yeah, I mean, that's where I was at. And I still remember dropping him off, and he said, I love you. And I said, no, you don't. He said, what do you mean? I said, you don't even know how to love yourself. And he said that's one of the pivotal moments, because that was true. Like I know he loved me, but he hadn't learned to love himself yet.
Yeah.
So definitely the first time leaving him was a lot harder. And I explain it as like losing a limb or a leg. They helped you walk, but they crippled you at the same time. So especially that first week, you're a mess. Like, what do I do with myself? Where do I go? How do I handle this? You're still pretty consumed by them.
Yeah.
Depending on the state that you leave. First time was a lot harder for Katie and I. Second time, we knew that we had to chase after healing too.
Yeah.
So
I think that helps, when you start, and we talk a lot about this, when you're dropping your loved one off and then you go home, yes, it hurts, but when you start focusing on yourself, it really does help.
Yeah.
In that process of, especially that first week or two. And then something that we touched on a little bit in that first week or two that also helps is the blackout period. Maybe not every rehab has this, but I think most of them probably do.
Because of similar behaviors in all addiction circumstances.
Yeah. So blackout period, meaning when you drop your loved one off, they're not allowed to call you. And it's a week. And depending on if they go to detox or not, I know you had mentioned that. If they go to detox and then go to rehab, it may be up to 2 weeks of a blackout period where they're not allowed to communicate really with the outside world. They're allowed to do the activities and the things with the men. But it also helps you. It really does.
Yeah. And it's a necessity. And this is where I think a lot of codependency. We have a friend at another female facility, but hers is 30 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a longer term, but 30 days, no contact with outside people. But you realize how important that is. And we were talking because it's a typical addiction scenario where if you had contact in that first week, they're still not in their right mind and their healthy mind. And so they typically will make excuses or ploys to leave. And then we're not in our right mind either at that point. And so a lot of times we still are in that codependent place. It's like, oh yes, I will come pick you up right now.
Yeah.
They get through that first week and they're like, I love this place. This is where I'm supposed to be. Yeah. So blackout is for a very divine purpose, psychologically, spiritually, mentally. It's put there for a reason. Count it as a blessing because it is hard. Because you don't know what they're thinking. Are they going to show up on my doorstep in 2 hours? Like, they'll call you if they let them go. But you don't know what they're thinking. You've always known what they're thinking to a sort. But you're just left with this unknown of... Yeah. But it's good because that's for your healing too.
Man, I know.
The journey.
I think I extended my blackout period without him.
Which is okay too.
It's okay. Yeah. I feel like I had told him I wasn't ready to talk. So I think he probably tried to call me when his was done, if I can remember back then. But I wasn't ready. And so I extended. I think I didn't talk to him for about 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah. And so bad. I think that I know I needed that for my healing to start going to counseling. Without having, because when he was dropped off, he was still manipulate. I felt like he was still in a manipulating place, or like you said, where they're not in their right mind, which turns into manipulation. Come pick me up. This is not the best place for me, and whatever excuses that they have, and but you remove yourself from that. Start going to counseling. Start. Taking care of yourself, clearing your mind, not having those rose-colored glasses on, and kind of removing those and taking a step back and saying, wow, that controlled me for so long. Satan, that the evilness did. So I think it's important. I think it's important to embrace, if you're new in this journey, and you are just really struggling because you just dropped them off, you're about to drop them off, just embrace that week or 2, or if you extend it, that's great. Whatever it is for you to really embrace that time away
Yeah.
from your loved one so
Yeah.
that they can start their healing journey too.
And that's what's important. Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of us, I'll say, are one-tracked mind when they're dealing with their addiction. And there's an inner body response that's happening. You're in constant fight or flight, which is very unhealthy for the body. You're not sleeping most likely. You're not eating, or you're overeating. I mean, whatever stress responses are happening. And so we, on this end of the first week to 30 days, have to go through almost a detox ourselves.
It's true.
Because I explain it to a lot of my girls, like they're like our drug. So we have to detox from the unhealthy, from the constant fight or flight response that's happening inside of us to where we're like, wow, I slept last night. You know, and you wake up and you're like, what do I want to do today? Because he's safe, she's safe. They're there. They're not on the streets. And you're like, man, what do I want to do today? And so you'll begin to gain that sense of self back.
Yeah.
Which comes with pouring in, with counseling, with whatever that may be. And it's so important and to fight that. And another thing that I had, you know, a lot of this is it's a process to grief.
Yeah.
So grief comes with death, with breakups, with them leaving for rehab. You have to grieve the life that you thought you would have, is theoretically what we say in this. And so there's stages to this, and you have to remind yourself and to be patient and to grace yourself, as I say a lot, because you've never been here before. You know, you don't know. Even our times were two different scenarios. We had never been in the second scenario versus the first. But you have denial, which a lot of us go through in the beginning. And then you have anger. And a lot of that, I dealt with this. I'm working with one girl dealing with this, but they leave and you're left with all the pieces. You're left with the bills, with catching up the bills, with taking care of the kids by yourself, angry that they made those choices. So then you've got anger that comes in. That's a healthy thing. You have to work through that anger to get through to the forgiveness. Guilt, what could I have done differently? Did I cause this? Could I have changed this? Bargaining, this is a big one that I see a lot of the girls, I did it. What can I still do to control this outcome? And I feel like this is where surrender begins to come in, is just like she said last week, I have to realize that he is God and I am not. So even a lot of us still try and protect their emotions in there. Yeah. And I was telling one of my friends this week that's going through this, any emotion that they have to face in there, whether bad or good, is incredible. Because they're learning how to do emotions again in a healthier way.
Yeah, because they've covered them up for so long.
Yes. Yeah. And so you want them to have these challenges. You don't want to protect them like you have been doing, because they have to learn to work through this stuff.
Love that.
Depression, isolation, this is a big one. This is another phase that you go through. You know, a lot of us, we don't go around unsafe people. I was one that I kept a very close crowd, because not everybody believes in what you're doing, or can say some pretty stupid stuff, hurtful stuff. And that hurts, and you don't need more pressure, more negativity, I'll say is the best word. There is a healthy level to isolation and processing, but there's also an unhealthy level. And so you have to decipher, what is the point to where I'm getting unhealthy and I'm closing off too much.
Love that, yeah.
And then acceptance. And this is where I feel like that hope begins to be restored. You have light again. You start seeing, there's just this feeling, like, you know, that you wake up and it just, you don't have that heaviness on you anymore.
Yeah.
That I'm going to be okay no matter what happens. And so you have to walk through these stages.
Through those stages. Yeah. And I think that it's so important. Yeah, in anything you do in life, you know, something happens to you and you have to kind of go through those stages as well. But with this specifically, I don't think that there's any right or wrong time limit to deal with that stuff either. It might take you kind of go bing, bang, boom, and then you're kind of through them. But then sometimes it kind of takes that the whole time that they're in there. That might be frustrating for them, but that's okay. Yeah. They're still dealing with their own set of things that they're dealing with. So, but one thing that you were talking about is like dealing with their emotions and not trying to hide those emotions. Yeah. I think it's super important as they're in there. I know Adam, he doesn't specifically talk about the guys, but he'll be like, man, there's some breakthrough going on. They're feeling it. And I know what that means
Oh,
because
yeah.
I know when Adam went through it and
Yeah.
some of the shame. And you sometimes want to protect them so much. Be
Yeah.
like, you weren't in your right mind and it's okay.
Yeah.
But they need to feel that.
They do.
They
Because
need
we
to
did
feel
a lot
that.
of that.
Yeah.
Lying for them, protecting
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
But this is that place to feel it and to deal with it.
Yeah, because for so long they numbed that area in their life to where they couldn't feel it. And so I just remember, Adam dealing with a lot of shame that he caused me, obviously, but then even with my family and having to call my family and seek forgiveness and, just that it's, it's hard. It's hard for them, but it's needed. It's pivotal.
Yeah.
One thing I can't help but think about when, a loved one is dropped off. I hear this from moms specifically of loved ones, but they find rest.
Yeah.
When they're in. Now for us as wives, and there's hurt and pain and stuff too with moms and dads and stuff. Obviously, there's been betrayal and stuff. But I specifically remember some moms just saying it's the best sleep.
Legit. Yes.
It's the best sleep I get because I know that they're safe.
Yeah.
I know they're being drug tested. I know they're not on drugs.
Yeah.
I was just waiting to get a phone call every single night, not knowing if my loved one was going to make it. And for them to be poured into and fed and seeking truth, embrace this time of rest. And I think that is so important. I hear a lot. With everybody. Even wives will find. I found rest when he was there too. But specifically his mom, my mother-in-law. She was like, "Thank you, Lord. Just somewhere that he's safe."
Yeah. Because how long have you not slept?
Yeah.
That's the thing. We hear all different stories. Some have been going through this for years. Some have been going through this for months, but you don't get good sleep worrying about them. And so when they're there, you're like, whew.
Yeah. So embrace that time when you drop your loved one off, as hard as it is to say goodbye, go home and sleep.
It's okay. If you need to lounge
Just
around
rest.
the house for days or
just rest.
Yeah. And that's another one on the subject of rest is one of the things, and I was talking to my friend this week about that, is busyness is a distraction. And I was really guilty of this the first time. Because I am one that if I'm struggling with something, I'm a shover, stuffer, but I make myself busy so I don't have to deal with it, which I've learned through years of retreats and stuff. One of my favorite quotes says, "One day or day one, the choice is yours." You have to go through healing from what you've been through. You choose when you start it. You can be 2 years down the road and still needing to endure this and face this healing. And I've said it before, but Denise Boggs says in our retreats, his feelings buried alive will never die. And so I think that's that choice that first week. And I've been encouraging my friend, you start digging now. When they're going and they're there, you start chasing healing now. Yeah. Like now is your important time, your chance, because you're going to have to face it at some point. So one day or day one, the choice is yours as to when you dig this stuff out, chase it, face it. It's so important to start the journey early. Don't wait. Process, grace yourself. Yeah. And then start chasing that. Counseling, whatever, Katie and I. Gratitude journals, any of it.
Yeah, I would venture to say I've encouraged women before in talking to them is to maybe write down. I do this for when the guys are in rehab and when they're about to get out of rehab, but kind of write a contract out for yourself. Yeah. And then maybe a contract out for your loved one when they get out of rehab. And we can maybe talk more about that at a different podcast. Yeah. But what's that look like when they get out? But also, what's it look like for you? What kind of healing do you want to do? Maybe write some of those goals out, right? And say, I want to find a Christian counselor. I want to go for a walk every day, or I want to find 2 accountability partners. I want to go get my hair cut. I don't know, whatever it may be that improves your walk with the Lord at the same time as improving just healing in this season. And so I encourage you, as soon as you drop your loved one off, whether to go home and write some goals down for your life during this time. Yeah. And it'll help you maybe stay on track a little bit, because you can have them all in your mind and say, yeah, I want to be healthy now, or I want to go get a counselor. But if you write it down and do a check mark right beside it, I've got my appointment with my counselor. I've contacted these people to be my accountability partners. I'm going to go take a walk with them this week, next week, you know, just, and I encourage you to find a few people in your life that you can, talk to, and be vulnerable with outside of a counselor, just somebody that can be there for you, in that regard.
Good. Yeah. And it's a process. And like Katie said, it's not going to happen overnight. Write it down and begin chipping away and working at that, because it is a process. And that's another thing on this subject is I am a perfectionist and I expect perfection out of others. It's a fault. But I had to be very patient with John. And that's where a lot of my surrender and my growth and grace happened, because this is coming from my own testimony of, and I say this to encourage you, I didn't jump on the healing bandwagon the first time like I should have. And we can potentially be their downfall when they get out if we choose to wallow in it while they're trying to move ahead. And so I encourage you, out of experience, to pursue and chase that healing as soon as you can, because I didn't do that the first go round. The second go round, I was like, I got to do this. I got to get healed for me above everything else, and for my relationship with God. And so that's really important. And I encourage you, out of my own faults in that, you know.
Yeah, we do hear that a lot. We hear that it's tough for them to come back to somebody that hasn't been healed.
It's
when
very
they've
hard.
been healed.
Yeah.
And they have sought forgiveness, and they don't see themselves as an addict anymore.
No.
When they leave S2L, they don't refer to themselves as an addict. That's their past life.
Yeah.
God has cleansed that. That is not them anymore. And for them to walk into a place where somebody stares at them and be like, you're the addict, that really, you know, destroyed a lot of my life. Now, there comes with it. We're not saying that as soon as they walk into the door that you're like, I forgive you and I trust you.
That's
you
right.
know?
That comes with time.
You know,
that
it
takes
does.
time. Yeah.
It does. It takes time.
Yeah.
But if all the resentment and the bitterness is pounding on them all the time, it's just it's
hard for
tough.
them to continue to walk.
We
and
do
like
hear that.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
And like Doris said, and I love that, was like, let me take that note right now.
Yeah.
But it's been a transfer of trust.
Yes.
And so I think as we go through that healing, while they're there, as we learn, I am transferring my trust from my loved one to God, that when they get out, I've dealt with my bitterness, I've dealt with my resentment, that I am trusting God to do whatever he's got to do, whatever he's going to do in all of this. And that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. And if we don't go through that healing, we're constantly, am I going to be okay? I got to control everything they're doing. I've got to, healing comes in so many different fashions when it comes to this. And it's hard. It's work. My friend this week, she was like, Chelsea, but this is so hard. I said, I know it is. I know it is, but I'm telling you it's worth it. And don't miss that, because the fight, the healing, the pursuing your healing is so worth it. And it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. But it's something you don't want to miss. Yeah.
And I think that there's an attitude, I feel like I might have felt this too. Well, I didn't do anything wrong. Why do I have to focus on myself?
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not an addict. I'm not the one that did this to my family. I mean, I'm fine, you know, but you're not, because you've been hurt, and you love your loved one, and they're going to come back into your life. And so what does that look like for your future?
Yeah.
Right. And how better is it going to be if you've really worked on yourself and you've really healed yourself for when they come back into your life?
It's so true. I think I may have talked about this on podcast, but I had somebody very dear to me that's older talking about her ex-husband, and there was so much bitterness. And she's a woman of the Lord. And I was like, have you forgiven him? And so that's the question we have to ask is, do I want to be 40 years down the road still holding bitterness and resentment that I could have let go of? Because like we've talked about, it hurts us. Yeah. I mean, of course it hurts them too, but it affects us and hurts us. And I guess the biggest thing too is any feeling, any emotion, any tough day, run to Jesus.
Yeah.
Like it says that he will hide you under his angel or his eagle wings and be a refuge to you.
Yeah.
And, you know, I tell my girls too, pour in every good thing in your life. If you need to get off of social media right now, if you need to put up boundaries with people that are a little more difficult, worship music, Bethel Peace album. I don't know if y'all know, there's actually waves in there that they actually formulate with your brain to bring peace into it. There's 2 albums. So if you guys are going through
Bethel Peace music.
It's a lot of the music that we know, but they put it to these sound waves that change your.
That's so cool.
So good.
Yeah.
So podcasts, sermons, like just pour into you right now, because it's another thing. We've been so busy pouring into them. I think sometimes we forget to fill up our own cup.
Yeah. So fill it up through the Word.
Yes.
Obviously, the most important.
Get in your Bible.
Get in your Bible. Worship. Because you might be sitting there thinking, and we've been talking about it, but you're saying, okay, I'm ready to heal, but where do I start?
Where do I start?
We've just been talking about it. Open the Word. Get an accountability group.
Yeah.
Worship. Seek counseling. Eat healthy.
Redo the house. That was another one I had written down.
That's good.
Get down the pictures
Projects.
that remind you.
Projects.
You know, there's stuff in your house. I had pictures that reminded me as soon as he left, I'm like, spring cleaning. I got out all the pictures that brought back bad memories.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Redid just whatever, if it's bedding or pillows on the couch, like make it new. So where you have that safe space to heal.
Yeah. There are steps that you can do to create healing in your heart and create healing for when they get out of rehab and you're ready for them. So,
yeah.
You got anything else?
I think that's good. I mean, I feel like we could talk all day.
Okay, well, we can, but we'll do another part 2 or something. Yeah. That's fine. We hope that you did find some hope as you drop your loved one off at rehab, that you can follow some steps to create true healing in your heart. Because there is hope. There's hope for you, and there's hope after addiction. So if you like this podcast, you can, if you're watching this on YouTube, just like and subscribe. You can find us on all social media platforms. Hope After Addiction on Instagram and Facebook. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. We get lots of our topics by interactions from you all. So if there's a topic that we haven't reached on, so just reach back out to us and say, hey, I'm dealing with this, and we'd love to talk about that. So we hope you enjoyed today. We look forward to seeing you all next time. Bye.